batteries not included.
Hi, my name is Teddy Ruxpin. Can you and I be friends? I really...
Everybody out!
Then, one day, we found an old treasure map. Let's read.
Teddy Ruxpin comes with illustrated book and cassette from Worlds of Wonder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Canned Air, your tribute to pop culture. I am Jeremy Colley.
I'm Jack Doherty.
And I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
And today on the show, we have a very, very special guest that, you already know who's here based on the cover art, but this has been a long, long time coming for Canned Air. Right, Jack? Christ, we've been talking about this one since we started. And I was very fortunate enough to find this gentleman's information within the past few months and be able to get him on the show. But our guest today is, he was a puppeteer and additional voices in The Adventures of Timmy the Tooth, which I know Randy is very aware of. He wrote songs for Sesame Street and was an additional puppeteer on Muppets Tonight. Jack, hey, how about that? That's something we didn't get to talk about within our conversation, but we were running long. Maybe next time we talk to him. He voiced Piglet and Rabbit's brother, Robert Rabbit, in Disney Channel's Welcome to Pooh's Corner, and he's probably best known as the voice of Teddy Ruxpin. He was the voice and wrote the stories and the songs, too. I don't know if he prefaced that, did he? I can't remember. But we welcome actor, voice actor, puppeteer, composer, lyricist, writer, author, singer, and songwriter Phil Barron to the show. And damn, another one in the bag. Another great conversation in the bag. As long as we've been anticipating this one, I would expect to be a little disappointed with my high hopes, but I was not. All expectations were met. It was a great conversation. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. Finding out he was from Cleveland, and I don't know, it just seemed like he was more of a neighbor versus anything else. There's a lot more we knew going on. His music career, that threw me for a loop. I didn't expect any of that.
Yeah, lots of fun things that he's done, but we don't want to say it all right here at the top. So we'll save the rest for the conversation. Have to remind you guys to find us on all of our socials listed here and on the website listed right here. We will get more into that at the end of the episode. We don't want to keep you from this one any longer. So without any further ado, here's our conversation with Phil Barron. Phil, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show. This has been a long time coming for Canned Air Podcast to have the voice of Teddy Ruxpin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Very excited to not only talk about Teddy, but some other things I've learned about your past while researching you. But we got to start, where you come from. And what I found out is you grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, which isn't far from us here in Columbus, Ohio. So I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about your growing up in Cleveland and what it was that initially got you into music, because I would have to imagine, as good as you are, you started at a young age.
Sure. And we'll get to Ohio State in a minute, because I did go to Ohio State.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the Ohio State. So my father was a violinist. And when I was young, he was still playing quite a lot. And he played legit music, but he also had a rumba band in the 40s, sort of like a Desi Arnaz. So I was like little Ricky, basically, in Cleveland. And he had a radio show on Sunday nights. And so I used to hear him play all the time. And, of course, I had to play violin as well. But first thing I did really was sing. And I think listening to my father, the violinist, because, when you play violin, the intonation is really, really important. I just got fuzzy again. I'm going to fix that.
Sure.
When you play violin, intonation is really important. In other words, when you put your finger down on the violin, you have to put it in exactly the right spot, or you're going to be sharp or flat. And so as a kid, I think that I listened to his playing enough to start singing on pitch. And so that was kind of amazing for a little kid to sing on pitch. And then so my grandparents would put me up on the table and tell me to sing, and then everybody would throw money at me. And I thought, oh, well, this is a good way to get through life.
Yeah.
And so I've been kind of, standing up on the table ever since then, and hoping people would throw money, not other things. And so I always sang from the age of probably 3 or so, and then picked up violin because I had to, because my father was a violinist. and was in plays and shows. And my mother sent me off to a drama camp where I was in the musicals. And so I was just always performing in one way or another. And then I traded in the violin for a guitar in
There
the
you go.
60s because it was a way to meet girls and violin was not. So, let's be honest. And Beatles were happening. And I started my own band when I was 16 and started writing music about that same time. I think I wrote my first song at 16, but I wrote music a little before that for a violin and just kept going with that. And so then went off to Ohio State, had a band, played on High Street down in at many of the clubs down there. I wouldn't name them now because they're probably all, obsolete, but played a lot of clubs there and bands, and then played in Dayton and played in Cleveland, and things started happening. So those are the early years, Phil Bear in the early years, and then I decided to go back. I left Ohio State after a few years and went on the road with the band, and then decided to go back to school in Cleveland for a while. Went to Cleveland State, and my drama teacher introduced me to a band which was called Woodsmoke. That's a very 60s sounding name, isn't it?
Yeah.
And and they were doing music for a theatrical production at the Cleveland Playhouse called The Birds. It was, Aristophanes' The Birds, but with a very hip contemporary score. This was the era of Godspell and Hair and all that. And we also played Godspell, the first outside of New York production. And so I started doing a little bit of music directing and then went on the road with another band and then met a guy named Will Ryan.
Yes.
Okay, Will's work. And Will unfortunately passed away now 2 years ago. But we were partners for 6 years, and we had a group called Willio and Phillio.
Yes, that's one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about.
Okay, well, we've gotten there, so ask away.
Well, first I have to backtrack and ask what your first band's name was, the one you said you started at 13.
The very first band was called the Night Raiders.
The Night Raiders. See,
The Night Raiders, yeah.
That would stand the test of time, right?
Yeah. And we played frat parties and high school dances and things like that. So, I mean, I was 16. Our drummer wasn't yet 16. So he joined the band because he was so impressed that I had a car and could drive. Okay. So that'll give you the impression of what that was like. And so, we played Beatles, Animals, Kinks,
Good
everything from that, particularly Animals, and then we sort of went off into a blues direction. So actually, in college, I was playing in a blues band. I played blues harp and fronted a blues band for a number of years in Columbus. Actually,
Wow.
Awesome. Wow.
yeah.
I would love to hear or see that, but there's probably no footage.
So would I. I'd kill for a recording, but those were primitive days. People were still recording on rocks in those. Yeah.
Well, what I could find out about Willio and Phillio, when I found out about them, I got to look into it. And I found that you guys had an album you put out, which was the world's first Willio and Phillio record album, which I then found online. Somebody had ripped the vinyl to digital, and I got to listen to it. And it's a great album. It's a great album, especially the one song you wrote. What is it? It Sure Feels Like Love.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
What a great song. Now, what
thanks.
kind of was a little confusing to me. It says, your guys' description is a music comedy duo, and there were some funny songs on there, but for the most part, it felt like a serious album to me. Now, I know you guys did like morning drive time stuff, so maybe that's where a lot of that lie. Or what was the other thing? You had the PM Magazine TV spot. I was just wondering if you could set up and explain Willio and Phillio a little bit better for me.
Oh, boy. Okay. Lot to tell there. I'm going to try to answer your question first, though, because I'll forget it later.
Sure.
We were kind of a fast-paced Smothers Brothers, Marx Brothers, Simon and Garfunkel, but funny, Yeah. And a lot of novelty songs. I played ukulele a lot. and Will played guitar, and sometimes we both played ukulele. Sometimes we played the ukulele at the same time. We passed it back and forth. So it was a lot of high-paced shenanigans and absurdity. And we developed a really strong following in Cleveland, and so we wanted to do an album that would have some commercial success, and we kind of felt like we could reach a broader audience if we did some funny songs on the album. We did a song called "I Hate People," for instance, that Will wrote, and on the flip side of the album was "I Like People," which Will also wrote. And so we decided to throw on a couple of ballads, one of which was "It Sure Feels Like Love." Thank you. That was my song, and I still think it had a lot of potential at that time, and it got airplay actually in Cleveland. That was the one we put out a single. One side was a song called "The Cleveland Stroll."
Yes.
And the other side was "It Sure Feels Like Love," and that actually got quite a lot of airplay. So I was pleased about that. But our theory was that at some point someone would hear this and think of us as a pop act rather than just a novelty act. So when I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when we brought that album to Disney, that just opened up all kinds of doors. But they did hear us as a novelty act and kind of skipped past the more serious stuff. So what can you do?
I see.
Yeah, but the rest of your question was to tell you, I guess, more about Willio and Phillio. It started because the two of us were music directing a show off Broadway that Will had written the music for, and at first he was working at American Greetings at the time, running those funny cards for American Greetings.
Yeah.
Along with people like Steve O'Donnell, who became David Letterman's head writer.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And Steve was there and performed with Willio and Phillio, and a lot of very funny people from around Cleveland performed with us. And we started by writing this show that went to New York, and Will said, "Listen, I'll pay your expenses to come to New York with me to do this." I said, "Great." So as the date was coming closer, I called him and I said, "I haven't gotten my plane ticket yet." And he said, "Oh no, I'm picking you up and driving you to New York." So he pulls up in his Chevy Nova, and we jumped in, and we each had a ukulele with us. And on the way to New York, we started writing songs and laughing a lot. And we thought, this is really fun. Let's do it on the way back. So we did the same thing on the way back. And I'm getting fuzzy again, and I'm just going to do your magic trick here.
No problem.
And hi, I'm in focus. and anyhow, I got back to Cleveland, and someone had asked me to do a performance in a club, a church basement nightclub that was happening in Cleveland. And I said to Will, "Why don't we do this together? It'll be a lot more fun." So we did, and people just thought it was great. We couldn't believe it. And what we did was a conglomeration of things. Like we did everything from Shakespearean sonnets to Al Jolson songs, "Toot toot tootsie goodbye," and then we would throw in "When You Wish Upon a Star," and it was really a crazy variety, and people dug it. So we started becoming known around Cleveland, and then that's when we were grabbed by PM Magazine and by some of the local TV shows that were on in Cleveland to just come on and do novelty things. It's Valentine's Day. Here's Willio and Phillio with a funny song, and we'd make up a song, and we'd goof around with the host. And the PM Magazine sent us out every week to do on Fridays something about Cleveland, like we go to a blacksmith shop. Or we go down to the lake or see the air show, and then we would report on it in our semi-ridiculous way and sing a song about it. And that became a thing. So that led to us being on the radio also. So we got offered a daily morning radio show. And then a guy named Jay Lawrence, who had been a very popular radio guy, came back to Cleveland and wanted that morning slot. So they wanted to move us to the evening slot, but that's when all our gigs were. So we said, well, we can't do that. But one great thing happened while we were on the show, and that was the Mickey Mouse Disco album came out. I don't know if you remember that. In 1979 or so, Mickey Mouse had a disco album, and it was
Really?
huge. It was hugely popular. You couldn't believe, and the Disneyland Records, they didn't know what to do with it because they never had a hit record before, maybe not since Davy Crockett, you know.
Right.
So it was a big hit record, and they were looking for something else to do. And they said, "Well, how about Donald Duck? Let's have Donald Duck do something." Right about the time we handed our album off to a guy named Jim Magon at Disney, and Jim listened to it, and he's the guy who said, "They're funny, they're goofy, maybe they can write some songs for Donald Duck." So that led to the Goin' Quackers album, and you may know about that.
Yes.
So that was 1980, and Disney called one day. Jim Magon called and said, "Would you guys like to write some songs?" We sent him a bunch of songs. They liked all of them. They took all of our songs.
Wow.
And we said, wow. And then they called back a couple weeks later and they said, you guys are pretty funny the way you recorded the songs. Would you like to be on the album with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy? We said, yes.
Hell yeah.
So we went to Nashville and recorded 3 albums in a week.
Damn.
Okay, let me repeat that. 3 albums in a week. And what they say about Nashville cats is really true. These guys, like, they would run through a song and we'd say, "Oh, that was great. Okay, let's do a take." And they said, "We just did it. We just did a take."
Wow.
That was it. Their rehearsal was perfect. So if you listen to those albums, you'll hear a lot of Nashville guys playing, and they're just awesome. So we did that, and then we said, well, let's go out to LA and see what happens.
So all this was happening even before you guys left for LA. That's incredible.
Yeah, but right before, and we were also playing. We were touring. We were doing the college circuit, and we went to Chicago, and played Chicago a bunch of times with Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson was a very well-known folk writer and performer, and he and Hamilton Camp used to perform together a lot. And so Bob was performing on his own a lot. He came to Cleveland. We opened for him at a place called the Pirates Cove. And he said, "Hey, come to Chicago." So we went to Chicago. We stayed at Bob's house. We did some gigs with him. And he connected us with the Earl of Old Town, a pretty famous club in Chicago. We played there. And the Earl's cousin had just opened a comedy place, not comedy store, but comedy club in Chicago. And so we went to play there, and we became regulars at this comedy club, which is where I met my wife.
Nice.
Met a whole lot of people that I'm friends with, and we came out here.
Wow.
So so there was a lot.
So after you guys then made that trip to LA, it seems like Willio Phillio stopped sometime after that, like pretty soon after that. Is that accurate or no?
I would say it was 3 or 4 years later, actually. So it wasn't right away. What happened was we did this album these 3 albums for Disney, and the Disney Channel was just getting going in around 82. So this is 80, 81, now 82, Disney Channel, and they asked us to write some songs for the channel for a new show called Welcome to Pooh Corner.
Yes.
And so we wrote some songs, and they said, "Hey, Will, you do voices, don't you? Would you like to try out for some characters?" So Will tried out for Tigger and Rabbit. Actually, he had done Tigger and Rabbit in a short animated version of a Winnie the Pooh story. And they asked him to repeat his role on the TV series. And then they called me one day. A guy named Frank Brandt was the producer, and Caroline Hay. And they called and said, "Would you try out for Piglet? We're having trouble finding a Piglet." So you guys will appreciate this. I had a reel-to-reel recorder. I took an air check off a Winnie the Pooh movie. I took all the Piglet stuff. I clipped it. I literally cut it
like
with a razor.
Like actual scissor?
blade.
Like, wow.
Yeah, with a razor blade, right? With the old splicing block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I recorded myself as doing Piglet voice. I spliced it in. So it was me with all the other characters. And I got the part.
That's awesome.
I would hope so after all that work.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
Right.
Jeez.
Well, either that or I was just so desperate.
How
And,
better to prepare though? My God.
it worked. And so it was 120 episodes that we did of that TV series, and it ran for 13 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it
I had
was
no
early
idea, really.
cable, so it was like a couple pennies per airing. But anyhow, had a lot of fun with that. And Hal Smith was on the show, and so then that company got another series called Dumbo Circus, and Will did one of the main characters, and I became the music producer on that show and wrote a whole bunch of songs. So Will and I wrote for Winnie the Pooh, and then he and I each wrote separately for Dumbo. And that was about the time our careers were going in different directions. Will was doing a lot more voiceover. I was doing more songwriting. My daughter was born in '84. And then I got a phone call. If we're ready to move on from Willio Phillio,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was so
No.
intrigued by it when I saw it.
there's
I mean, you're
so much-
following my notes right down each page with everything I wanted to ask you. So continue.
I cheated. Jack showed them to me.
Damn it, Jack.
And so I was at my house one night, and it was like 10:30 at night, and the phone rings, and picked it up, and it was a guy named George Wilkins, and I'm getting fuzzy, and here we go. A guy named George Wilkins, who was one of the great songwriters and human beings that I ever entered my space, and unfortunately he died 3 weeks ago. And
My God, I'm sorry.
yeah, but he was 90. He was 90. And Michelle, my wife, and I went up and were with him just 2 days before he passed. So George had a legendary career. He worked with Jimmy Durante. He was Connie Stevens' music director. If you walk into any of the Disney parks, you will hear George's music. So he was
Just like the ambient music playing in the park, or
yeah.
wow.
So his music is all over all the parks, and I actually sang on stuff for him that went to Tokyo, and worked with him for many years. But George was on the phone, and I had met him at Disney. He was head of the music department, so producing all the stuff for the parks, and he was the head songwriter also for the parks at that time, because there were songs that were written as well. And we had met at Disney, and he just called me one night and said, "Hey, listen, man, I got this, there's this toy that a guy has developed, and I've written all the songs for it, but the guy they have doing the voice doesn't sing. So can you come down to the studio and just do the guy singing?" I said, "Sure. When would you want me to do that?" He said, "Now."
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, threw on some shoes and got in the car and drove over to North Hollywood. It was Emmylou Harris's studio in North Hollywood, and recorded a little singing. And then they got on the talkback and said, "Phil, could you just try reading some dialogue as well?" So I said, "Sure." So I read a couple lines, and they said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I replaced all of the lines that the original voice had done. It was only maybe one or two of those little book and tape things that they did. And I ended up doing 35 or 40 of those book and tapes, and 65 episode TV series, and on and on. And unbeknownst to me, Teddy Ruxpin, which is who that character was, had a sidekick named Grubby, and that was played already cast Will Ryan.
That is incredible. Like your guys' I mean, I know a lot of it comes from the initial Willio Phillio, but it seemed like even outside of that, like your guys' paths still would keep intertwining throughout your careers.
All constantly. We actually did a movie together just a few years ago. So
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you about that too.
Okay.
So just trying to go in chronological order here,
Sure.
instead of illogical order. That was such a Will Ryan thing. I'm sorry. It really was. Teddy, and so they handed me the toy, and they said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Oh, this looks great." And inside my head, I was thinking, "This is weird." It's talking to me. But you hear all the time in show business, this is going to be the next big thing. People are
Right.
always telling you that, usually to get you to work, for less money. And so I just assumed it was one of those things and went home and went to bed and ended up going back and, working for the next 3 years. But it was a huge hit. All the, Time Magazine ran a big spread on Newsweek, all the news shows. I did commercials for Smith Barney. Do you remember that with John
No.
Houseman? You know John Houseman? So
No.
John Houseman was a very famous, like legit actor, and Smith Barney had him doing their serious commercials, and in one of them he brings on a Teddy Ruxpin and
Oh, wow.
recorded some special stuff for that, and Prince Charles and Lady Di got one, and the President of the United States had one. It was like
That is so crazy
it
to
was
think
great.
about your
I know
voice being
it
in
was
there.
just
Wow.
absolutely insane. How wrong was I to think that it was no big deal? It was a very big deal.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Like your reaction to the phenomenon it became, because I mean, it was almost like the next Cabbage Patch craze, you know? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, it was.
it was
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, it was. I just kept having a good time in the studio with the guys. So it was it was Tony Pope as Gimmick, who I had worked with on a number of other things also. He and I kept crossing paths. Russi Taylor, who was also the voice of Minnie Mouse, was on the show, and then George Wilkins, and then working with Ken Forsey, who created Teddy Ruxpin. And it was just so much fun doing these little shows, and we just got along so well. And it was long hours sometimes, and we were churning the stuff out, but we knew it was actually reaching people. And for me to know that I was talking to little kids, some of them who really needed a companion, it was just that was really special. That was the opportunity of a lifetime for me. It wasn't just, the glory, because it wasn't the Phil Barron toy.
Yeah.
I was always, behind the scenes, which suited me so well because I really don't like being the center of attention. I'm much happier, just put the batteries in here and I'll talk
Sure. Sure.
rather than being out in front. And Teddy's lines were all in a script. I didn't have to make anything up. But eventually, I did become the head writer for Teddy because Ken Forsey saw that I had a connection with this character. And most writers will tell you writing is all about character. And so when they first started the TV series, they had someone else writing it, and Ken said, "Why don't you write it?" So I'm an uncredited writer on it. It was a Canadian co-production, so you can only credit Canadians. And they allowed a couple of American actors to come up. So Will and I went up to Canada to record the show. And we wrote here, my wife Michelle and a guy named Len Levitt and I and Ken Forsey wrote all the stories, and then we sent them up to Canadian writers, and they wrote the scripts, and then we kind of rewrote, edited, and did them up in Canada. Wow. So that was fun. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, man, you made such an impact on my life. This guy up here, this is my original Teddy right here. This guy has survived so many years, so many show and tells. I mean, when I remember getting him, I had to wait 2 years. I begged for 2 years to get the guy. And it was like having a little bit of Disney at home or something, that this guy could talk to you. Had so many of his books. I had the airship. I had all of it.
That's so touching. Oh, man.
And then here you are. I'm sitting here talking
so
to you.
moving.
This is pretty incredible, man.
Wow. Well, in that case, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes.
Oh, man.
Okay. Are you listening? Hi there. How are you, Jeremy? My name is Teddy Ruxpin. Can you and I be friends? I really enjoy talking to people, especially people who listen to Canned Air. It's my favorite show.
Wow.
This is what Giddy looks like. Oh, my God.
Oh,
Thank you for that.
You can use that in your promos, you know.
I will if I can take out my gasps of elation. Wow.
It's funny. People of a certain age really connect with Teddy, and and others have no idea what they haven't heard of it. They don't know any of the cultural kind of reference of Teddy Ruxpin. So my daughter was at the young end of it. So she just turned 40. So like people 40 to 50, wow. People 35 to 40, yes. People under that, it depends. You know, if they've, Googled Teddy Ruxpin, if they've checked it out that way. I get emails from a lot of people in their 20s now.
Seriously?
Really?
Yeah, and younger. I get emails almost every day from people. I have, by the way, I don't know if I should do this, but if you write to me at iliopshop, iliopshop@gmail.com, you might get an answer from Teddy Ruxpin. So you never know.
There you go.
That's awesome.
20-year-olds reaching out. I know Teddy has been around for all these years in different incarnations, I guess. The original one was around for a while. Then I think he shrunk a little bit. And then over time, they gave him a whole new look. But these 20-year-olds are reaching out to you. They're not reaching out to the person who's voicing in their generation. They're reaching out to the original Teddy. That's incredible.
Yeah, they are, and there's a woman that I know quite well. I've done a lot of Zoom communication with her, and she has behind, like you have a Teddy behind you. She has several Teddys. She has the fob. She has gimmick. She has clothing that has Teddy logo stuff on it, and there's a whole group of avid Teddy Ruxpin fans out there. And unfortunately, the company that owns Teddy Ruxpin isn't doing anything about the nostalgia market.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. If they remarketed the original Teddy, oh my God. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Exactly. Candair was going to light that fire. So just wait.
Yeah. We'll get that part done for you, Phil.
Okay. Good. I'll be waiting by the phone.
It's got to be.
I was just going to say really quick, Randy, I don't want to cut off your thought, but you said that woman had all kinds of Teddy stuff. That's not the only one I've got. This guy's still in his box. This was a gift from my sister for Christmas a few years back, and it's been opened, and he doesn't work, but the box is. Him in the box is like so awesome to have. I remember seeing him on the shelf at Hills with the big display around him with the button you could push and he would talk.
He'd talk while he's in the box.
I have one of those displays actually.
Do you?
That's
really?
awesome.
Yeah, from Toys R Us or something. Yeah. But in the box, brand new one. And years ago, I had an assistant who admitted to me that he and a friend snuck into Toys R Us and they put an Ozzy Osbourne tape in the Teddy Ruxpin display. And they got busted, and their parents were called and everything. Anyway.
Oh, jeez.
I remember experimenting with the Teddy Ruxpin tapes, too. I mean, I was always playing with tapes, like cassettes and VHS, but I remember finding out that the Teddy Ruxpin tapes had an extra little tab on the top that had been removed that would keep them, I think, from playing in normal tape players.
No,
or maybe it was the other way around.
No, you could. You when you took the tab out, you couldn't record on that tape anymore.
The Teddy Ruxpin ones had an extra tab, though. I felt like maybe I'm
really?
wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, but one of the tapes. I think maybe it was the tape. Like if you put the Ozzy tape in there, you had to cover up a certain tab on the tape in order for it to play or something.
That could be. But I know that it was stereo. So one track was the recorded material, and the other track was a code. It was like a SMPTE code. You guys are probably too young to remember that, but it was a code that would cause the mouth and eyes to work.
Yes.
But if you put it into a regular player, you'd hear and that wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, and if you put Ozzy into Teddy, his mouth wouldn't move. It'd just shoot open and stay there the whole time Ozzy's singing Crazy Train.
Not a great sales pitch there.
No. Stick with the tape, the Teddy tapes in the Teddy Ruxpins.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So when there were live events, or I guess not live events, but I think of like Teddy Ruxpin on Ice because Guilty. Went to that too.
Wow. You know what? I might have a pendant from that in my closet back there.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
was that your like pre-recorded voice? Were they just skating to your pre-recorded voice? Or?
Yeah. I guess it's been enough years that I could speak honestly about that experience.
Go for it.
So I wrote the script. I'm sorry to admit that because they completely changed it after they got it. And so Ken Forsey, the creator of Teddy, and I and my wife went to see the show, and we thought it's going to be great. It's going to, because Ken had approved the script, and they chopped it up and they redid stuff in such a horrible way, and it was crazy. It was like, did you ever see in the Rugrats Reptar on Ice?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a little bit like that. If you can imagine it, giant characters skating around, and the story made no sense anymore. And it was a really awful experience. But
Well,
the three of us were just,
No.
yeah, right. And we
That
kinda
would stink to see
crept
that
out, don't recognize us,
Well, that would, yeah, I would feel the exact same way if I had written it and they chopped it all up, rearranged it, done whatever they want with it. I don't see how they can do that, but
It made no sense.
yeah. At the
Well,
same
there
time,
was so many things happen, at the same time. It's very hard, and I give credit to the license holders, which is Alchemy too, that they were able to stay on top of so many things, because there were bed sheets and pillows and lamps and and you name it, all kinds of licensing going on all at the same time. Really, a relatively small group of people. It started in a garage with 9 people. That company, Ken Forsey's garage out in Canoga Park here. And when it kind of reached its zenith of employees, it was about 120 people. But that's it. Disney is what, 110,000 or something like that. So, it's a different game entirely. And they did the best they could, but you couldn't control everything, is my point. So that's why Teddy on Ice got out of our control a little bit.
I am sorry that happened to you, because again, I would sympathize. I'd feel the same way. But let me tell you something. As a 6-year-old, 5, 6, however old I was, sitting there, it really didn't matter what they were saying. Like, they could.
Oh, that's right.
They were skating around, just making me
No,
happy.
people loved it. People did love it. Yeah, but when they do canned air on ice, then you guys will be really on it for sure. Make sure.
You'll get a letter from us being like, Phil, I know exactly what you're talking about. They totally
We
ripped
share
our
your pain.
They didn't use a thing we wrote.
And the costume version of Randy was just didn't look right.
Yeah.
Hey, it's hard to get this physique down.
I've got to see the costume of Randy now.
Yeah.
Somebody out there, please make that. Just a drawing if you
God.
can. like a sports mascot.
Yeah.
Oh God, this
Yeah.
is not going to end well.
Anyhow, we digress.
Oh, I
So ask
only
me more
because I have
stuff.
to. Well, one more quick Teddy question I was going to ask
Yeah.
is I heard you on another podcast say that you're actually working on a book about your experience of voicing Teddy Ruxpin. I know we went over
Yeah.
quite a lot here, but are you able to elaborate on that a little bit? Is there any kind of release date?
There's no release date because we're just really getting going on it right now.
Okay.
But enough people keep asking me these questions, and I keep getting interviewed, and I guess there's enough interest out there that we thought it might be nice to reminisce with some of the people who are still around. Unfortunately, we've lost George now, but I have enough reminiscences with him and some of the other main people that were involved that I think there would be enough people interested to put some of this stuff down. So that for historical purposes, there are all kinds of collectors out there of this stuff that I think would really enjoy it. So
You're
that's our
absolutely
motivation. But I will let you know, and I'll be happy to come back and plug it whenever that happens.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I think I'm going to be going on Cameo soon to do some of that.
Okay.
So if any of your
Perfect.
listeners would like a special greeting of some kind, maybe in a month or two would be a good time to start looking at Cameo. See
All
what
right.
happens.
Yeah, shoot us a. Well, I'll keep an eye out too. But when that goes up, maybe I can go back to the notes of this episode and throw it in there. That way, when people come across
okay.
it,
That'd be great.
and
Thank
then
you.
you'll see your first message is from Jeremy saying, "Can you do that Teddy voice again?"
No charge. No charge.
All right. One more thing I wanted to touch on before we let you go is what you have been doing for the past 20, if not more years. You are a cantor at the Valley
That's
Beth
right.
Shalom in California. I can't remember specifically where in California.
Okay. Encino.
Encino.
Yeah.
Yes.
Encino. So that's in the valley, so north side of Los Angeles. And yeah, it's one of the largest congregations in the country. And what happened was, I got out of the voice field mainly because I didn't like the scripts that I was seeing. Children's entertainment started to get more kind of low humor, and
Like talking down to kids almost in a way, like not.
no, what I mean is kind of crude, more
Oh,
crude. Yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
More crude and more just kind of being sassy, which is fine. It's fun having funny kids shows. I love SpongeBob, for instance. But it wasn't the kind of thing that I wanted to do. If you think about Teddy Ruxpin and Piglet and some of the other characters that I've done, there's a sweet side to that, and that's what I really like doing, and that's what I'm best at. So I started moving out of that, and I ended up producing records at Rhino Records for the children's label. There, I produced 30 albums. Stuff for Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. I did produce a Reptar on Ice album, so that's
Did
why
you really?
that came to mind. Yeah, and that was fun, and Scooby Doo, and kind of sweet, tender stuff for kids for the most part. But I did Powerpuff Girls also and some other things. And I did that for a couple of years, and then the record business was getting to the point where it wasn't really a business anymore because of they were just trying to figure out. Remember Napster and all this stuff was happening, and they were trying to figure out, how are we going to continue making money at this? And I was sort of over it at that point. And one of the things I had always been interested in doing is doing music in the synagogue, and always been a spiritual person, and always had a commitment that way, but never really took the time to focus on it. And I was doing a lot of singing at this large synagogue that I mentioned, Valley Beth Shalom. And one day the music director there said, you should think about doing this professionally. And I said, okay. It was that quick, because it had been on my mind, basically on my to-do list since I was a kid. And so I went back to school. I learned what I needed to learn. And I've been there 20 years now, and I had 3 years at another place prior to that. But what this is all culminated in is me running our spiritual centers. So I teach meditation on Tuesday mornings. In fact, I have quite a few Teddy Ruxpin fans who come to meditation because they found me. But seriously. But what I do is every Tuesday morning, like this morning, I do some music, and I lead people through about a 45-minute meditation using prayer, and trying to get people to be more mindful about their relationships, about their interactions with other people, and the stuff I think Teddy Ruxpin would want to do if he was a real person and Jewish.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's what I do these days, and can plan on continuing to do that for as long as I can.
It sounds like a lot of fun, and if I was closer, I would attend if you guys would let me in the door. I don't know. Do you let people who aren't Jewish in?
In your case, yes. No, actually, I would say about a third of the people who come to these sessions that I do are not Jewish and have no Jewish background whatsoever. They're not all even in the United States. There's some in foreign countries.
Wow.
So it's a very accessible experience. So if you
sounds
like,
awesome.
I can give you a way to get to those meditations anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, send that my way, please. That would be sweet. I'm curious about another thing I read. That you founded and you're the director of the Helfman Institute, which is a composer. Well, let me see. What a composers group dedicated to creating new synagogue music. Now, is that just for your synagogue, or is this like music to be incorporated to all synagogues, kind of a thing?
Yeah, it is. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. I realized some years ago that I had friends who were wonderful, accomplished composers for movies, for TV, for records, and who never thought about writing anything religious, of religious nature. And I thought, let's see what they could do if they would be willing. And these people who get paid a lot of money, and I was asking them to do it basically for nothing, because if I could find the right people for whom it was important, and I did, and I reached out to people who were writing for Disney at first, and then a guy who writes like for the London Symphony.
Oh,
and
wow.
all these people who are, one of the great things about being in LA is all these people tend to come through here, and some are now in other places, but there are maybe 25 different composers that I've worked with. And we'll do settings of Psalms, we'll do liturgical pieces, we'll do little sort of Bible plays, playlets. Some are very funny, actually, and but some are very touching. And we've written now about 80 pieces. The latest project is we've set Israeli poetry that's been written since October 7th of 23, written by native Israelis, just about their feelings and their confusion and their sorrow and their relief at times. And so we've taken a number of these poems and set them to music.
Wow.
So that's a pretty heavy project.
Yeah, I would say.
But some of it's very touching, and some of that's been broadcast and streamed from other countries. So we're working on getting that material out to more and more people. So thanks for the platform to talk about that. It's important stuff.
Absolutely. I would love to hear some of it myself if that's ever going to be a possibility.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll send you some of that.
Okay. Did you guys put any of it out to the public, like on YouTube, anything like that? Either like when you.
So we're actually supposed to start recording next week, and we have 10
wow,
pieces.
we're in the thick of it, like right now. Okay.
Yeah, right now. So we're recording 10 pieces, and we'll definitely get it out to the world as soon as we can.
All right. Yes, please keep us in the know.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
Thanks.
Phil, thank you so much for taking
My
this time
pleasure.
tonight. This has been a pleasure. And like I said earlier, a long time coming for Canned Air Podcast to have Phil Barron on. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm so touched to that. That's your Teddy sitting up there behind
Yeah,
you.
if I got him closer to the camera, you'd see all the grime and dirt on him. But I tried
Does it
to,
work? Does it still work?
it
Yeah.
doesn't. When I found him in the closet about 5-6 years ago, it crossed my mind, like, I wonder if he still works. I went and bought fresh batteries, popped them in, hit play, and that that sparkling sound that comes on right before he says, "Hi, I'm Teddy Ruxpin."
Yeah.
It started to play that, and then and he just stopped.
So when I got mine out of storage, it did the same thing, but it was while he was talking, so he got really low. Started talking like this.
Wow.
Well, I looked online, like, how do you fix this? And there were people who had instructional videos, how to fix your Teddy Ruxpin. And I'm not kidding you. They actually had you slicing him up to the top of his head, peeling the flesh off of his face, and then working with the servos and the belts in there. And there was no part of me that was ripping this dude's face off. It's like maybe if I found another Teddy at a garage sale, I could try, but not on my boy here. It's me and this guy for life.
No, that's right. I don't blame you. Well, it happens to all of us eventually.
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
There's one day my servos and belts will quit too. So
That's right. I'm sorry to tell you.
And really quick, Phil, if I can,
Sure.
I just want to thank you for Timmy the Tooth too, because I had an orthodontist that would play that in the waiting room. And that is the
really?
only reason I would get through those like freaking hour-long section. So
that's great. That's great. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I was Mr. Wisdom on Timmy the Tooth. Yeah.
Wow.
Another,
I've never
another
seen
great
that one.
Oh, it's great. Great series. Yeah. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Again, we'll let you go, Phil. But once again, thank you so much for this. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been really fun for me too.
All right, everyone, and once again, our conversation with Phil Bear. And guys, come on. That was another great one in the bag, right?
When you told me we were getting him on, it was just like memory being unlocked after memory. Like, I totally forgot about Pooh's Corner. I totally forgot about Timmy the Frickin' Tooth.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously, I can't forget about Teddy Ruxpin, but it was just like, damn, okay, cool.
Yeah. This guy's a seasoned pro, working on the Muppets and Disney and Timmy the Tooth. I've been aware of Timmy the Tooth, but never known what he was. I thought it was like a Christian show, maybe, but apparently it's a dentist show, which makes more sense.
Yeah, and I don't know, it might be, but it was just something the orthodontist just played constantly, so it was like, I don't even really remember an episode. I just remember, like, between, like, the pain of getting your fucking braces tightened and all that shit, like,
the dentist
that
did
was
it
the only
only
thing.
for you. You were the only patient he had to do it for.
But just sitting there in the waiting room, like, waiting for, like, the shit to harden, it was just like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I remember those days, man. I remember those days. They were not fun days. Not fun days. But, again, what a great conversation this was. I was bowled over to hear that, there are 20-year-olds today reaching out to him to talk about Teddy Ruxpin. That this toy here that was made years before they were born, they're so intrigued by that they're reaching out to him.
It's got to be because some kid's like, hey, Mom, Dad, what the hell is this teddy bear in this closet?
Maybe,
that's Teddy Ruxpin. I used to tell you stories when they were a kid.
Yeah, but have your parents ever shown you a toy that they had when you were kids, and you were like, "Oh fuck, this is my new obsession"? You're like, "Get that cup and ball away from me, Mom! I got my iPhone."
My mom's got a couple of dolls that are creepy as shit that me and my sister are afraid of.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we don't go into that room in the basement.
Do you remember there was a video? Oh, I think Ryan showed this to me about like within the past 5 years where somebody bought a Teddy Ruxpin at a yard sale, and they just left it in their house. And I guess this thing, on its own, like in the middle of the night, would just start talking and saying stuff that Teddy never said. Like somebody swapped its innards out with like a Furby or something. Like somehow made this thing to just start talking in the middle of the night on its own. Like that's some creepy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Now that is the fucking yin and yang of like beloved childhood toys. Like Teddy Ruxpin, loved to death. Furby, fucking burn it with fire. Like,
yet it was
really
somehow a hit. Yet people loved Furby.
But it's got to be something about Teddy, because I didn't get a chance to say it when we were talking to Phil, but I had my Teddy Ruxpin out when I got the Grubby I found and was trying to like plug it in, and my daughter came out of nowhere and she's like, "What's this? Can I have it? I want to play it." Like, just totally transfixed, but the whole process of like hooking them together and listening to them and all that. So
they're still today pretty darn cool toys. You know what's funny about Grubby too is after I finally got Teddy, then I was like hard on my parents. Well, now it's Grubby. We have a whole merchandise line to work through here, people. And the next Christmas I got Grubby, and Christmas morning hooked him up, plugged him into Teddy, and put batteries in him, turned him on. He never worked.
Really?
So my mom and dad were like, "Oh, that's okay. We'll take him back and get a new one." And they grabbed him off my bed and started walking away with him. Like, whoa, where the fuck you going? I've already got emotional attachment to this one. It's fine. He doesn't work. I still love him. Put him down, and that I just always had a non-working Grubby. Yeah. The fuck was wrong with me?
Did he really add that much to the storytelling there, Randy?
It was like, well, so my Teddy like died before I actually got it in there.
Oh,
but,
so you never got to do it?
Yeah, but I mean, from the videos and stuff I've seen, like it's the whole like other half of the narrative.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, because it's Teddy and Grubby doing the story.
And they're like talking back and forth.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they sit there and converse and stuff.
Was there a third one you can hook in, or was that just... a false
I don't
memory.
think there was a third one. There was like a Disney version of Mickey and Goofy they came out with right after, and then of course there was the Mother Goose that came out as like the more female, the more little girl slanted version of the talking thing. That's what my sister had, and that's who Renee Jacobs, the voice of April O'Neil, she did that voice.
Oh, okay.
Remember we talked to her about that.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But yeah, pretty darn cool. This episode was pretty freaking cool, especially when he's like, "Close your eyes." Oh my God, I haven't felt that giddy since I was a little kid, man. So thank you, Phil, for making me feel that way again, and thank you for taking time to be here on the show with us because it was incredible. And we're going to get him back in the future when that book comes out. You're coming back, Phil.
Hell yeah.
But until then, Jack, can you tell these lovely people where they can find us?
Go to cannedairpodcast.com where you can listen, like, follow, subscribe, become a patron, buy some merch, see some of our YouTube videos, and if you'd like to be a guest and promote your work, send us an email on our contacts page.
You can find us on Twitter at CannedAirPod, on Instagram at canned_air, and on TikTok at CannedAirPodcast. And once again, CannedAirPodcast.com that Jack was just talking about, 2 ways you can support us. The Patreon tab, where you can get up to 4 or 5 years worth of content that's just been building up, audio and video, for $5 a month. So if you want more content from us, that's where you're going to get that. Or if you want to wear us on your shirt, on your coffee mug, on your hat, on a sticker for your laptop, go to our website. There's a merch tab there where you can find all that stuff. And, it supports the show. If you don't have money to support the show, though, other ways you can support us by hitting subscribe, hitting like, leaving a comment on your podcast player of choice. It helps out very much. Helps drive more traffic our way. It's not just making us feel good about ourselves. And Randy, what else we got?
And huge shout out to evergreenpodcast.com, the network we are so proud to be a part of.
Yes, sir, Bob. Yes, we are. Very proud to be with him. Been with him how long now?
It's going on 3 years, I think.
3 years, I think.
3, 4, something like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got a good thing going with Evergreen. So, yeah, big thanks to them. Check them out, evergreenpodcast.com. And I think until next time, that's going to do. Actually, you know what? Before we go, I meant to say this earlier. We talked with Phil about a song that he did for the Willio Phillio album. It Sure Feels Like Love. It's such a good song that when you hear it, feels like it should be like a 70s standard or something, like on a 70s like best of kind of album.
Nice.
Like it should have, like it stands the test of time. It's a great song, and if you listen closely, you can hear hints of Teddy in there. But I'm going to put that at the end of the episode, so stick around for that. All right, everyone. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. So until next time, I am Jeremy Colley.
I'm Jack Doherty.
And I'm Randy Hardenbrook.
Thank you so much for watching and listening, everyone. Be excellent to each other.
Today was such an ordinary day. It didn't rain, it didn't shine. I just woke and said hello. And nothing seemed to matter to me. I didn't really care. I noticed you were there, and it opened like a fly. And it sure feels like love. Yes, it sure feels like love. And with you it was right to spend a day, and not the night where the light of the sun could shine. And walk among the ruins beneath our feet of city streets, the sidewalk songs you sang all were mine. And it sure feels like love. Yes, it sure feels like love. disappeared, there's something very near to me that stayed behind. To know you're in the world is all I need to take with me. I'll go on home and dream alone this time, and it sure feels like love. Yes, it sure feels like love. Well, it sure feels like love.